8:47, and I'm delighted to say Alan Quinlan is with us. Good morning to you, Alan. How you doing?
Morning, lads. How are you?
That was a bit of a bumper weekend of sports. And in the midst of it all, Argentina created a little bit of history. Ledesma in tears before the match is even over. Couldn't bring himself to look at the last couple of minutes of the game. It was so exciting from an Argentina perspective. And it probably isn't going to get the hour long that we would normally give it.
Yeah, it was incredible. I think it was certainly scenes of and a reminder of what happened in Chicago in 2016 with Ireland beating the All Blacks for the first time. It was incredible. Their work rate and quality as well, I think, was phenomenal. And I think it was a full strength New Zealand team, so it wasn't a second string team that they beat. It was on, and the game was on in Australia, but it was incredible effort from them. It was just phenomenal to see that. To see that passion and emotion. You just love that in sport and what it means to people. And they were just unbelievable. It was a brilliant game.
Now, Ireland obviously beat Wales, beat them really well, had an excellent performance, and a lot of players got game time who maybe we didn't expect to see getting as much game time, which kind of ratchets up the tension and expectation for the game against England next weekend now, because if we can build on that performance last weekend, then it'll feel like we've turned a corner, there's been a great job of work done. But on the other hand, if England do to us what they've done to us every time we've met them recently, which is squash us, then it'll feel like, oh, Jesus, nothing's really changed. So what do you think is going to happen this week, and how do they go about it?
That's the challenge, I think, if England do what they've done the last couple of games, you say the last 3 times we've played them, we've struggled physically and they've blown us away with just, with not any inventive sort of rugby style. It's just been aggressive and power, and they've executed well when they've had chances and opportunities, and we've struggled with that. So it's a real test for them now. And I think I said this the last time, the last Six Nations game in back in February, whenever it was, that even if we lose the game, we've got to come out of the game saying, well, we matched them physically, or we weren't bullied or pushed around. And it's a very difficult place to go anytime. And the history, I suppose in the last 10, 15 years, our results have been pretty good in Twickenham. But up to that point, it was very, very difficult to get a win there. So it's always going to be a difficult task going there. But it's the manner in the defeat. We lost by 12 points, I think, in that game. But their dominance was really prominent throughout the whole game. So can they build on the performance on Friday night? For sure. But one of the issues is taking the opportunities and identifying a little bit of space, and the pick and go scenarios that we kind of creep back to when we got close to the line. I know Quinn got the try, but there was 1 or 2 others where it just needs 1 or 2 passes and something a little bit different. You won't kind of get that. It'll be difficult to get those kind of tries, more difficult. I know when you get into that area, it's hard to defend that kind of stuff. But I just think identifying some space and backing themselves, and I hope they can have that confidence to go there and get a decent performance. But it's going to be very difficult, no doubt about it.
Quinny, for the last few minutes of the game on Friday, Conor Murray finds himself playing out half after the hamstring injury for Johnny Sexton and the head injury for Billy Burns. Listen, we'll have to wait and see how serious they are. Andy Farrell said that Murray was potentially an option to play it out half against England if they didn't come through. That can't be right, can it?
Well, look, he's a very good footballer, Conor Murray, and he's capable of playing there. But look, ultimately, I think you've got to try and pick a fly half who you're really rolling the dice there. Very, very talented player, and I remember him when I was finishing up. Conor, we played touch before training and even in the warm-ups and stuff. And he's a phenomenal open field runner, and he's great footballing ability. Can he play out half? Of course he can, but I think it's a risk, and he's not obviously used to playing there at high level, and if you're playing a tier 2 nation, I think. Yeah, for sure. If you're going to a World Cup and he's your third choice fly half, the other 2 get injured, you'd back him to go in and do a job there, no problem. But I think it's a big risk if they're thinking of doing that on Saturday. Hopefully,
the long-term damage as well, I guess, to the players who are behind Billy Burns in the pecking order, to the the different Burns and the Jack Carty, Ian Madigan players who could step in and do a job for an occasion.
Well, they'd be very frustrated, Nathan, I think. And there is a gap between Sexton and the rest, and that's just reality. Carberry hopefully will get back soon. He's closer to Sexton than the others. But yeah, it's as you say, it's a confidence thing. If one of those guys don't get picked, and Sexton will be a massive loss. I think the last game in the Six Nations, he didn't play well over in Twickenham, as did most of his teammates. But for me, I wouldn't go there because it's a risky. But then you could argue and say, look, this is Nations Cup, and maybe it's an opportunity to do some. I'll be honest with you, if Andy Farrell announced him as fly half on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever they announce a team, would I be frustrated and angry over it? No, I wouldn't. I'd say fair enough. It's worth a crack if they believe it's the right thing and it's something to do. But as you say, it probably doesn't do anything to that gap between Sexton and the rest. It makes it bigger if anything.
Yeah, but that's because none of them are playing well enough, and it's not like they've seized 100%. The position.
It's not as if they can give out Ger and say, well, I should be playing. They're in the position because that's the level they're at the moment. Yeah. And they've got to close that gap themselves.
Let me talk about seizing of positions. What's our best back row at the moment? Is it possible that you could have Peter O'Mahony at 7? I mean, we have never really picked him at 7, but he has played in big, high-profile matches as a first-choice number 7 when he's beaten out all the other best number 7s on the Lions tour. Is it possible that he plays 7, Standard plays 6, and Caelan Doris plays 8, or Doris plays 6 and Standard plays 8 against England, if we're looking to go physically toe-to-toe against England next weekend?
It's a real possibility, and it's something that will come up in the coaches' meeting. I think probably the attack will you have a different scenario around attack, because if you take Will Connors out, the pressure he can put on Owen Farrell on Saturday will be immense, really, and his agility and pace around the field and ability to poach ball and probably he's a more natural number 7 than Peter O'Mahony would be. But it's a real conversation that's worth talking about, because not because he's done well there before, but because he played so well on Friday night. And I think form does dictate these decisions. And again, it's a risky one, because if you do it and the team don't go well, the scrutiny will come on Andy Farrell and say, why did you do this? And why did you make these decisions? They're the kind of decisions you have to make as coaches, and you live and die by the sword. But Stander and Doris start 100% every time at the moment, going forward, because it doesn't bother me who's 6 or who's 8. I would probably put Standard to 8 again, I think, because Doris probably has that versatility, and it doesn't really make a huge difference which one of them start at 8, but that's the way I'd go. And I would consider that situation of putting O'Mahony there, but obviously the attack coach and Mike Catt will have a bearing on that as well. It won't be just the forwards coach with Simon Easterby and Andy Farrell talking about it, because it could have an impact on what Connors can do against Andy Farrell, but it's a real option for sure.
Let's talk quickly about James Lowe and Jameson Gibson Park. All of a sudden, James Lowe has like a scrappiness where there's a fight happening and the ball's over there, and then next thing he's on the ball again, and you're like, we just need a little bit of this. We need a little bit of the dark alley, and he's brought that. I'm going to have a fight with you, and I'm going to skin you on the outside. It was like exactly what we needed.
Yeah, well, if he's not on your team that you're supporting, so in other words, if you're not a Leinster...
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Yeah. This is what we've been enjoying for the last 3 seasons.
For sure, and it's why I was so popular when I played Ger, because I was probably doing that pulling and scraggling and getting into those little scraps as well. But, he's such a top quality player, and I can cheer him on more now that he's playing for Ireland. But... look, he's someone, if I was playing against, I'd try and, look for myself and get in his face. But he has such an ability to, I wouldn't say antagonize, but unsettle the opposition a little bit, full of energy, full of enthusiasm. And he's a top quality player. So his strength is in the, being a bit niggly with people and upsetting them. He's a brilliant player. He's so powerful in the carry. He wants to get his hands on the ball, and he offers Ireland something really different in that back three now, and real aggression and strength on the ball, and someone that you can bring in field to make carries as well. So he had a really good game the other night. I was delighted he got to try. And, he'll bring a little bit of energy and enthusiasm. But I thought Chris Farrell was superb as well. Henshaw looked really good at 12. So there's a debate about what happens in centre as well. Does Bundyaki come back in there now? I just think Chris Farrell, every time he makes a carry, he just seems to get over the gain line or get through that little bit of space between defenders, and very, very underrated at times, and very, very skillful player.
I'd love to see Farrell on the wing. Like, get him in the team somehow. Get them all in the team if you can.
I don't think he has the pace, the out-and-out pace. I think if Gary Ring was... I kind of had this in my head before the start of this tournament, or even before with Italy and France, before the Six Nations games. Play, Henshaw or Aki at 12, put Chris Farrell at 13, and put Gary Ringrose on the wing. Ringrose has that out-and-out pace. He can play in the wing, and he's done so before. I just think at times Chris Farrell is too good a player to leave out of the team. But again, look, it's the balance of the centres is something, and probably it's an issue and an area where we haven't been as coherent and as dominant going forward in attack in the last couple of years. So I think there's a debate that's going to happen around the centres as well, because I thought Chris Farrell was really good and Henshaw was really good as well together as a pair.
All right, these analysis bits on the Monday after a victory are much easier than the analysis bits when we've been picked apart or we've fallen into the same pattern. So hopefully next Monday is going to be just as easy. Alan, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us.
Cheers, lads.
It's Alan Quinlan giving us some thoughts on Ireland's relatively routine victory against Wales, but also looking forward to what's coming next weekend.